Hello and welcome. I'm James Milan, and I'm here with Warren Tolman, who is a Democratic candidate for Attorney General. Thanks for coming in to talk to us
My
today.
pleasure, James. Good to be with you.
We're going to get right to discussing or covering the format of the interview. This is going to be a live-to-tape interview, and that means no edits once we begin. Answers will be limited strictly to 2 minutes each, and we will start with a 1-minute opening statement from the candidate. And after the questions, we will conclude with a 1-minute closing statement. So, Mr. Tolman, you now have 1 minute to make an opening statement.
Thank you, James. It's good to be back in Arlington. As I said to you a few minutes ago, I drove a UPS truck in Arlington for 8 months as I was trying to save money, pay off some student loans from college, and save some money for law school. I'm running for Attorney General because I believe the Attorney General's office can be utilized in a very effective and powerful manner to make positive change on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth. Specifically, I want to work on dealing with the opiate scourge, helping to end gun violence, addressing consumer protection, and enhancing the power of the consumer protection component of the Attorney General's office, and also to deal with the issue of on-campus sexual assault. These are issues which allow me to utilize what I think are pretty good leadership skills that I've exhibited during my 8 years when I was in the legislature, in the House, in the Senate, where I became a very independent voice, a voice for reform, a voice standing up to the powers that be on behalf of the people of Massachusetts on a whole range of different issues. So look forward to talking with you about that.
Thanks very much. And you've already begun to allude to some of these issues, but the first question is, why are you running for Attorney General, and what prepares you to serve in this capacity?
Well, the preparation is really life preparation. You know, I've been a lawyer since I got out of law school, since I took the bar in 1987. Frankly, I've had a number of different experiences as a lawyer, working with large and small companies in the private sector. In the public sector, driving sometimes a national legislative agenda. I was one of the early crusaders against the tobacco industry. The American Heart Association gave me their Statesman of the Year award. The American Cancer Association gave me, they sent me around the country to teach other legislators how to beat big tobacco. In fact, if you know nothing else about me, James, Rush Limbaugh attacked me on national radio. He called me an anti-smoking Nazi, so that's how I knew I was doing something right. But I was unafraid to take on this interest. Hard to believe that, you know, where we were smoking, how we were smoking, they were preying on young kids. My mom, my dad, and my aunt who lived with me all had died from smoking-related illnesses within a 5-month period. So I went at this industry with every ounce of energy that I could muster, beat them, worked on domestic violence initiatives, and which I know even today are saving people's lives. And I want to utilize those skills on behalf of the Commonwealth in a progressive, proactive manner to take on issues that aren't being addressed. I don't believe the Attorney General's office, like my opponent has asserted, is the arena for the Attorney General is in the courtroom. That's part of it, but that's not it. It's much, much more than that. It's taking on issues that otherwise are not going to be addressed. And frankly, take the issue of on-campus sexual assault. I want to call a summit, all the colleges and universities together. When 1 out of 4 women are victims of sexual assault, we've got to address this. And we can lead the nation in Massachusetts, our colleges and universities, some of the best in the world. I want to make them the safest in the world. And by doing so, by leading, other states will follow.
Thanks very much. Sorry to have to cut you off. Next question, and it will take a little while to unwind it all. But as the Attorney General of Massachusetts, you would serve as the, quote, chief lawyer and law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth. Briefly explain what that entails as far as you're concerned, and whether you think that the current Attorney General has successfully fulfilled her duties. And please give specific examples to justify your answer.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not running against Martha Coakley. I think she's been a very good Attorney General. I'm proud that I've been endorsed by all 4 living former Democratic Attorneys Generals, people that have varied skills and utilize the office in different manners. For me, I look at this office and I say we have to really take on not just cases that come before us and the investigations that come before us, but deal with issues in a positive, proactive manner. You know, for instance, the market basket issue. They've been out of work for 6 weeks. I would have rolled up my sleeves weeks ago and gone to Arthur T and Arthur S and quietly tried to do some shuttle diplomacy to try to get those forces back together. You know, obviously it's happening. I hope it's going to happen this week. I'm told it might happen this week. But, you know, with leadership, you can get a lot more done if you're willing to go to people and try to push your leadership skills on people and try to get them to sit down, try to get them to collaborate, forge consensus in a positive manner. Not necessarily in the confines of any statutory authority for the Attorney General, but nonetheless important stuff. When you have 10,000 Massachusetts residents out of work, you have hundreds of thousands of people who can't shop at where they want to, and you have hundreds of vendors who aren't supplying the goods, we got a problem. You go to work, you try to do things. And, you know, as I was talking about on-campus sexual assault, the fact that a woman today is more likely to be the victim of sexual assault if she goes to college than if she doesn't, I find outrageous. So I want to, you know, sing from the rooftops and try to bring attention to this, teach about bystander intervention, train campus security better, and try to prevent this real problem, this epidemic on our college campuses, and make our college campuses safer. That's using leadership skills, that's using the power of the office, maybe in a different way, but in a positive way.
Thanks very much. As the Attorney General of Massachusetts oversees an office with multiple bureaus and missions. What executive experience do you have to allow you to serve successfully in that capacity?
Sure. Well, I've been a leader, you know, certainly in my state Senate office, certainly in leadership positions at the law firms that I've been at, two major law firms where I had leadership positions and led a department within one of those law firms. So a number of different instances where I've been a leader and have worked with a wide number of attorneys in a positive way. But the most important component of this, as you look at examining the structure of the office and moving some pieces around, is to have an Attorney General who is consumer friendly, that is out there at the Arlington Senior Center, you know, not perhaps me, but people from my office that are sitting down with people and saying, okay, you know about the Treasurer's unclaimed money list. Do you know that the Attorney General is there to help you with your consumer complaints, so that when that painter that you paid $5 grand for never shows up to paint your house, and you can't hire a Boston lawyer to go after that $5,000, but you want to get the money back, the AG's there for you to advocate on your behalf. It might be a car dealer. Whatever the case may be, James, there's a number of instances where a proactive, consumer-friendly Attorney General can be there to help the people of Arlington, the people of Massachusetts. These consumer predators start with communities of color, people for whom English is a second language, and our senior citizens. My 90-year-old mother-in-law doesn't want to answer the phone because of the scam artist calling her. And by the way, they disregard the do not call list and the like. The Attorney General can be the frontline consumer advocate if the office is utilized effectively. And I want to do that. I want to do that in a very proactive way to help people that are having issues with merchants that are less than reputable.
Okay, thanks. What do you think are the most critical civil rights issues facing the residents of Massachusetts, and how might the Office of the Attorney General address such issues?
Well, there's a whole range of different civil rights issues. You know, the fact that 40% of our gay and lesbian youth are homeless because they've got kicked out of the house because they came out to their parents. I mean, that's a real problem. That's a civil rights issue. We see what's transpiring in Ferguson, Missouri right now, and I'm concerned, you know, have we done everything we can? Is driving while black still an offense? Are there issues, you know, I have 2 daughters and 1 son. I have a hard time that my 2 daughters are going to earn on average 79 cents on the dollar that my son's going to earn. Didn't make sense 30 years ago. It doesn't make sense today. So there are a number of different civil rights. The whole disability community. The disability right now the disability division is part of the civil rights division. I'd like to separate it out, make it its own separate division. 12% of the people in Massachusetts have a disability. They ought to have their own division to which they can go if they have any issues. So I see, making sure that our disabled friends and neighbors have the same rights as everybody else. There's housing issues. There's a whole range of different issues that within the Civil Rights Division that the Civil Rights Division will be entrusted with, and I'm going to recruit talented people to run that office and to do so proactively and not be, afraid of stepping on some toes, as I will with the pay equity case, where I've already hearing some cases that, make no sense, where a male nurse is getting more than a female nurse and doing this exact same job. Why should that happen? But the final thing is I hope people will know that irrespective of their race, their religion, their sex, their sexual orientation, when they come to the Attorney General's office and Warren Tolman is the Attorney General, they're going to have a fighter, they're going to have an advocate, they're going to have someone on their side looking out for them.
Thank you. And can you please give us 2 examples? I know you spoke that you're not running against Martha Coakley, of course, but can you give us 2 examples of how you think the Office of the Attorney General could have done either more or better during the last 4 years? And if elected, what changes would you envision for the office?
So one thing I would like to do is I would like to update the gun regulations that are out there. Specifically, there's something called smart gun technology, James. And, my dad had a gun. I'm not trying to take away anyone's guns. But the NRA has prevented smart gun technology from being marketed and sold anywhere in the United States. This is the technology where you grip a gun handle. There's a chip in it. It recognizes your fingerprint, your gun, your fingerprint. You can pull the trigger. You can have 5 people on it. You can have just yourself. And this technology, developed in 2000, Smith & Wesson wanted to sell it, and the NRA organized a boycott of the other gun retailers and said, if you sell this, we're going to force you out of business. So Smith & Wesson shelved the technology. And every hour, James, of every day, somewhere in America, a young child is injured as a result of a gun accident in the home. Every hour, every day. This technology ought to be available for people to purchase. As Attorney General of Massachusetts, under existing law, I can force the implementation of smart gun technology on new guns sold in the Commonwealth. I will do it. I'm not, I wasn't afraid of big tobacco. I'm not afraid of the NRA. I am the only candidate in this race, Democrat or Republican, who will do this. My opponents all say, oh, we support smart gun technology. Oh, let's wait for the legislature. We see the power of the NRA and the Gun Owners Action League on Beacon Hill and on Capitol Hill. I'm not ready to wait. This will cut down on gun trafficking, because if they break into your house and steal your gun, they can't use it because it's got your fingerprints on it. Secondly, it'll cut down on accidental deaths, those deaths that happen all the time. And the police, 1 out of 8 police officers who's killed is killed in the line of duty with their own gun. So this will also cut down on that. This will save lives. It means taking on the NRA. Sign me up. I'm going to do it in my first short period, in the first month or 2 in office, and stand up to make our communities safer.
Thanks. What specific proposals would you seek to implement to help the Commonwealth and its residents, and you did speak about this already, I know, but in the area of consumer protection?
So with consumer protection, and I can elaborate a little bit. So I was a complaint mediator when I was in college. It was my first office job. I did it for 2 summers, and I really believe that, since everybody knows the Treasurer's unclaimed money list, but people don't know that the 617-727-8400 is the Attorney General's office to help resolve a consumer complaint. And I don't think the complaint handling mechanism is as consumer friendly as it ought to be. Portuguese speaking women, I was down in New Bedford earlier today, that are in their 80s are not going to go online and not going to have access to the type of technology to submit a claim. And they don't even know, a lot of them don't even know that it's there. So what I want to do is I want to bring people from the Attorney General's office to these areas, and I want to have people that speak Portuguese, speak Spanish, speak Haitian Creole, Chinese, etc., so that they feel comfortable talking in their own native languages about what the Attorney General can do. In the last 10 years, the number of complaints, a little over 10 years, the number of complaints the Attorney General's office has dropped from 140,000 a year to 60,000 a year. It's not because there are fewer disreputable merchants. It's because people don't know that they can reach out to the AG's office. So when I worked there, I loved, I remember one disreputable car dealer that I put out of business by going, he wasn't supposed to be selling cars. I visited him in Dorchester. And he showed me, I looked for his ad in the paper for Sunday papers for weeks back in the day. And I finally saw it. I went, saw that, walked around the corner, signaled to the state police. They came in and they arrested the guy. He shouldn't have been selling cars. He was put out of business, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, looking out for the consumer. And we'll discern patterns and practices sooner if we engage in this process in a real active manner.
Thanks very much. What role does the Attorney General's office play in helping the state economy, creating jobs, attracting new business, and keeping existing businesses from leaving the state?
So first of all, a very active role, I would hope. What specifically we can do, number one, it's getting unnecessary and burdensome regulations out of the way where appropriate. Some of them work and some of them are effective and some of them are, don't make a whole lot of sense. Secondly, I think one of the ways an Attorney General can help is with what I refer to as the fraud tax. And specifically, it's a tax that we all pay. And it might be Medicaid fraud, somebody swindling Medicaid and taking advantage of it, or we all paid the big dig fraud tax, where, and I was in the legislature back then, I pushed for oversight on the big dig, was one of two of the first legislators to push for that oversight. I scaled back and pushed to scale back the Deer Island treatment plan, saving hundreds of millions of dollars for MWRA ratepayers as a result of my advocacy. So I want to look at some of these areas, and we talk about Medicaid, you can talk about cyber crimes, you can talk about a whole range of different issues, and what you and I all pay as taxpayers, this fraud tax. We just saw the probation scandal. The cost of having inept people functioning in a real way in the criminal justice system is a tax that you and I pay. And the consequences of it, by them making mistakes they shouldn't, or having somebody else having to correct them, is a real tax. So the Attorney General, in my view, has to be ever vigilant to make sure that we root out corruption, but also we root out the patronage that we saw in the probation, which pales beyond anything I've ever seen in state government, and is wrong. And to the extent the Attorney General can stand up and stop the unnecessary paying of this fraud tax by all of our citizens, or certainly minimize it, I think will be a very, very good thing for all of us.
Thanks. Please give us one example of an issue that you and your opponent agree on, and two examples of issues on which you differ, and why your own positions represent the best interests of the Commonwealth.
So the gun issue is a big one where we differ, and I believe that this is a serious issue that we need to address immediately, and I believe that we have to stand up to the NRA, because guns are a real problem in suburbia as well as urban America, and we need to lead. This technology is not available anywhere in the United States, the smart gun technology. I will make it available, and then other states will follow. Second area is around, I think, opiate abuse. We both want to address the opiate scourge. I want to do it in a very direct way. I want to take on Big Pharma. They got to produce these pills in tamper-resistant form, James. I want to make sure that they're held accountable if they engage in any unfair and deceptive marketing practices. I also want to ensure that they do what they're supposed to do with regard to the predatory practices that they sometimes engage in. And frankly, when I look at the small number of doctors who prescribe a large number of pills, 20% of physicians prescribe 80% of the pills, we got a real problem there. And to look at the prescription practices of those doctors. And in addition, the opiate problem, the heroin problem, is so bad and so pervasive that, and if you're in Eastern Massachusetts and you want to get a bed, and you want to go into recovery, you're going to have a real hard time. So I want to really lead on this issue. I think sometimes my opponent doesn't see this as an area where it's outside the purview of the Attorney General's office. For me, it's directly on point. There's a problem. The Attorney General can address it. We can address it by litigation. We can also address it by leading, by using the bully pulpit, by advocating for legislative action. Any one of a number of these issues, similar to the market basket example that I used a few minutes ago, and you ought to do it. You have an obligation. You have a moral obligation. This is a crisis. We need to do it. Mental health parity is the law of the land. Let's make it the real reality of the land.
Thank you. And last question is, what strategies would you use for working with members of other parties and with others of opposing views? And what experience do you have implementing such strategies?
So when I was in the legislature for the 8 years, I was in the legislature in the 90s, I worked with a whole range of different legislative leaders. The last campaign finance and ethics piece that passed on Beacon Hill, I was the chief sponsor of. I worked, and one of my co-sponsors was a Republican. And I was unafraid to ask for and get support from Republicans. And frankly, one of the things I did, and I learned, James, is that you and I might argue today and be on opposite sides, but tomorrow we'll be comrades in arms. So you can't let yesterday's issue prevent us from working together in the future. So, and I worked on that a whole range of issues. You know, I sued a sitting House Speaker because he needed to fund clean elections and wouldn't do it, as 67% of the people had voted for. I may be the only Democratic senator to have served with William Bulger as Senate President to not have voted for him, you know, because I felt he had been there too long. I also passed a ban on smoking in the State House over the objections of a chain-smoking Senate President. I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. And when you're honest and forthright and willing to stand up against business as usual, probably the most reform-minded legislator in at least the last 20 or 30 years. The Globe once referred to me as Mr. Payne and the you-know-what on ethics. And when I ran for governor in 2002, one reporter said Tolman is a one-trick pony. It's reform, reform, reform. I'm proud of that. But when you're consistent on it, you develop respect from a whole range of different people because they know that you're not doing it for today's headlines. They know you're committed to it. That's the type of Attorney General I'm going to be. I'm going to be trying to push Massachusetts to be a better place to work and to live and to raise a family. And I think as AG, there are a lot of opportunities to do that and do so with a great deal of autonomy.
Thank you so much. And that wraps up this part of the interview. Flew by. So you now have an opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement.
Do I get to take a deep breath first?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And to my friends and neighbors in Arlington, it's a great community, not unlike the community where I grew up in Watertown as the 7th of 8 kids and the first of my family to go to college. I haven't forgot where I came from, and it's very important to me that we have someone in the Attorney General's office who's willing to lead that position. It's an elected position. It's not an appointed position. We can get great attorneys to do what needs to happen in the Attorney General's office, but there can only be one leader. There can only be one person who's going to stand up against business as usual, stand up and take on the NRA, stand up and push to address this opiate scourge, and stand up for consumers across Massachusetts. Let them know that if they have a disreputable merchant, if they have a consumer complaint, the Attorney General will be there. The Attorney General, Warren Tolman, will be on your side, advocating for you, fighting for you, irrespective of your race, your religion, your sex, your sexual orientation. I want to be your Attorney General. I respectfully request your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we do want to thank Mr. Tolman for coming in and speaking with us today. And we urge you to make your own voice count by voting at the state primary on September 9th. So for Arlington Public News, I'm James Milan. Thanks for joining us.